3 days after it was said he drowned, his body began to bleed as though he had just recently got hit by something. This unusual discovery is now making a lot of people question the circumstances that led to the untimely death of the Uniben final year student, Francis Ikechukwu Aniude, who was said to have gone out with two of his friends on the 29th of June 2023 to Ekosodin River for sightseeing and for a swim, only to end up drowning and losing his life. The story is more complicated than it seems because right now, many people don't believe that Francis drowned. In fact, they are saying or suggesting that it was his two friends who may have killed him and dumped his body in the river. And sadly enough, there are evidence to make one believe that that might just be the case. So keep watching as we go through every details of the story. Now, Francis was a 23-year-old final year student from the chemistry department in the University of Benin. He was already graduating, he was already done with school, and maybe that might have been part of the reason why he decided to join his friend out for sightseeing on the 29th of June 2023 after they had invited him. It was said that his two friends, Samson and Wilfred, who one of them is in 300 level and the other is, I don't think they are both done. Maybe one of them is also in final year student while the other one is not in the final year student. It's unclear which of them is in which level. But on that day, they both decided that they were going to go swimming in Ekosodin River, and they asked Francis to join them for sightseeing and for a swim. Now, the Ekosodin River is in a nearby community, quite a distance from where they are, but also something accessible. However, it's being said that the road leading to the Ekosodin River in the Ekosodin community is a tricky one. It's not a straight route, and it's one of those rivers that is not usually mostly busy. And one way to understand this is that even when the boys planned to go to the river to swim, they all agreed to not go with their mobile phones. It's unclear why, but if three young adults decide to go out of their lodge somewhere for fun and they decide not to go with their mobile phone, it does raise a little bit of suspicion as to what was the motive behind leaving your mobile phones at home. However, according to the story, it was said when the boys took their trip down to the Ekosodin River, they began swimming, and somewhere along the line, Francis began drowning. Seeing they could not save him, they both ran out of the river and ran back to school, not even going into the community to call people. It was said they ran back to school on their feet, and the journey from the river to the school is about an hour plus. Even the journey from where the river is to where the main community is pretty much an hour if they're going to go on foot. So it was said they went to school to inform the school authority that Francis was drowning, and that was when the entire story broke out and the case blew up that a final year student has drowned in Ekosodin River while going out for swimming. The case was soon reported to the police and the appropriate authorities got involved, including Francis' families were informed, and they had to go to the police to see what's happening. Even around all this period of time, no one had made any effort to go to the river to see if they could find a way to rescue him or immediately get him out and try to save him if possible. So the police was said to have been treating this matter as though the boy was already dead. That all the family of the boy had to do was wait for his body to float. According to the sister of Francis, when she went to meet the police were already giving her condolences, like, sorry for your loss, sorry for your loss. Whereas the boy's body has not been recovered, and it's not even certain or sure that maybe Francis was even the one that they were talking about, aside from the reports of what classmates and friends and the people who invited him were saying. So, on the 1st of July, 3 days after this incident, it was said Francis' brother mobilized community youths and paid people to go into the river to find his brother and recover his body. And it was said it took them 8 hours to recover or to find and spot Francis' body. When one of the divers went into the river, he saw Francis' body and then even had to come out to inform them that he had seen the body and that they should bargain on how they could retrieve it. They had to get rope and get equipment to be able to get his body. But the strangest thing about how Francis' body was discovered is what is playing a big role in why a lot of people are doubting that his death was just drowning. First of all, it was said Francis' body was seen in a standing position. The diver who saw him said Francis was standing at the bottom of the river, like he was still standing, he wasn't lying flat. They also noticed that his neck had bruises and his lips were also bruised. When his body was eventually brought out, they also noticed and saw something strange tied around his neck. And it was said that that was a line of candles that was connected with the rope. One of those candles used in celestial churches. It was said that the candles were tied around Francis' neck, which may have caused the bruises and which may have probably played a role in his drowning. Now, this discovery of this candle is very questionable. Is what is making his family believe that his death or his drowning is not ordinary. How did the candle get around his neck? And how come he was found standing at the bottom of the ocean? And as if those facts were not enough, it was said when his body was brought out, that was when it began bleeding from his lips, from his ears, and from his mouth. A body that has been submerged underwater for 3 good days, first of all, did not float back, and second of all, was not even bloated, and still had a lot of fresh blood coming out of it, as though it had not been long he died or something. When the police were able to understand this aspect of what was discovered in Francis' situation, they immediately had to call the boys back. That is, the 2 friends who had taken him for the swim, Samson and Wilfred, and asked them what's up with all of this. Why was there a candle on his neck? Why was he drowned standing? And why were there bruises in his lips and neck area? And it was said the boys were arrested, but it's not clear the current situation now because this story is still progressing. The family of Francis do not believe that he died of just drowning. They strongly believe that his 2 friends may have used him for money rituals, citing the candle and citing the condition of his body when it was found and recovered. As it stands now, this is all we know regarding the case. It's not clear what the police are doing. It's not clear what the family of Francis are also chasing, but they know that something is off. And many people who have heard the story also believe that it seemed something was off, even from the onset. So we are currently waiting for the police to do their due diligence to explain what happened to Francis and also to question the 2 boys to see if they were saying the truth at first or if there is more to Francis' death than what they claimed it was. Personally, for me, from the very onset of the 2 boys leaving their phones behind, I did not get that part. It seemed very calculated. It seemed like, why are we leaving our mobile phones behind? Shouldn't we take pictures or do videos if we're going sightseeing? And in case of emergency, they might need to call someone. It could also be that they were scared of getting robbed or something, and that could have been part of the reason why they dropped their phone behind. But at the same time, it's still suspicious. Now, if I have to sound off on the way his body was recovered, I'm not gonna lie, hearing that he died drowning seems to me that he was pulled down. For someone to drown standing, I don't know how drowning works, but the fact that his body did not float out 3 days later and wasn't bloated is a little bit suspicious. But I guess there could be some scientific explanation behind it. If there isn't, then it might just be what it looks like. Now for the candles, I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure as to what that means. Did the friends do it? It's very possible. Or could it also be that this is a river that a lot of people must have come to worship, and a lot of these people who uses this candle must have thrown the candle into the river, just the way we see trash and dirt and certain things in the water. Could it be that when he was swimming, the floating candle caught around his neck and that may have played a role in his drowning? That is also possible. But is it also possible that his friends used him for money rituals? It's hard to tell. And I think with all this that has been said regarding the situation and the invite and the dropping of phones, one might easily believe that his friends knew more or did more than just watch him drown. What I would have actually suggested for the police to have done was to go to this two boys' house, Samson and Wilfred, go to their house and do some search, carry out a search, carry out more investigation, check if they could find similar candles in their rooms, check if they could find any fetish looking materials that would suggest they are into this money ritual line or anything fetish that may implicate them or draw a similarity to Francis' situation or circumstances on how he died. If the police had carried out a search, a quick one immediately, they may or may not have found anything that would have implicated or suggested that these two boys used Francis for rituals. But I did ask Francis' sister, and she did say the police had not carried out any search. It will be too late to even do it now, because if these boys did have anything to implicate them or suggest that they are into some kind of fetish way of life, they would have cleared it up by now. They would have cleaned up their act and cleaned up their room. So that would not be to any effect if they did not do it initially. Another thing again they could do is also ask questions of people who know Samson and Wilfred. I'm sure they have friends who can tell or suggest that they might be fetish or they might have a knack for fetish things. Because I'm not going to lie, it does look suspicious. I see reasons to believe that Francis' death may have been more than just drowning. And if that is the case, if there is a slight possibility that it could be more, then the police should look into it. The police should investigate it. The police should do their due diligence and give us answers. So as it stands now, Francis' family, his siblings, because we hear he's an orphan, his brothers and sisters are still trying their best to get justice for him. They're still trying to make sure the police do the right thing and the story goes out there that they believe their brother may have died in more ways other than drowning. And they are still hoping for the police to do something, maybe get the two boys to confess or defend themselves as to clearing their hands. So we'll just wait for updates and I will be following the story. So make sure you like and subscribe and turn on your notification button. So if there is an update to this story, you'll get notified. But before we go, I want you guys to tell me your thoughts on this story. What do you think might have happened to Francis? Regarding the candle, do you think it was put there by the friends as part of their ritual or their supposed ritual practice on Francis? Or do you think maybe while Francis was swimming, the candle caught on his neck and as he tried to get it out, he starts to drown? Could that be what may have happened? Because I want to imagine the Ekosodin River, seeing that is in Edo State, is one of those rivers where a lot of religious people may have gone, or those white garment churches or people who use candles for prayers and worship would have done so many of those baptism or church or sacrifices in that water. It could be, and I can imagine how many calabash or how many candles or how many fetish things might have been thrown into that river. So I am suspecting at the back of my mind that if the friends did not do the candle thing, maybe it caught on Francis' neck and that may have played a role in his death. But it would have really made sense for the police to have run a quick search to these two boys' room and see if they would find similar candles, because if they did use candle on Francis, they should probably have some more in their houses or in their homes or in their rooms. And also let me know if you think the boys had ulterior motive behind leaving their phone behind, because I think it's suspicious, honestly. Of all the places to go and swim, you're going to pick a remote village that is 1 hour away from the rest of the world to go and swim. I mean, if you wanted to swim, there are hotels and swimming pools and civic centers you could go, but it's just a little unusual that they picked the Ekosodin River and decided to leave their phones behind. It's suspicious. I'm sorry, it is suspicious. And also, I would like to also hear your thoughts on the nature in which Francis' body was found. Remember, it was found standing with bruises around his neck and cuts in his lips, almost as though he had gotten into a fight with someone before he drowned. Does that indicate a struggle between his friends and him, or was he a struggle with himself? and his body standing and not bloating and still bringing out fresh blood despite staying underwater for 3 days. I mean, it is very suspicious. So you guys let me know your thoughts, let me know your opinions, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because if this story develops, I'll be happy to update you guys. So thank you guys for watching.